Welcome to the Hindu Daily.
Good to have you back.
Today is Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. And, looking at the stack of reporting we have from the Hindu today, it really feels like we're staring at a global dashboard where every single light is just blinking red.
It does.
We have this massive rupture in geopolitical norms starting in Venezuela, a resource crisis that threatens to pull the plug on the whole electric vehicle revolution.
And a hidden mental health epidemic inside the world's largest export engine.
Exactly.
It is a heavy stack. We're covering 6 distinct pieces today: editorial, science, text and context, and business. But if you look closely, there's the theme running through all of them.
Which is?
The absolute limits of power. I mean, whether it's the U.S. testing the limits of international law, or spiders managing the limits of their own biology, or Chinese workers just hitting the limits of human endurance. Everything today is about the price tag, the price of survival.
That's a great lens. Okay, so let's jump straight into the story that has, well, effectively erased the last 80 years of international diplomatic norms. The lead editorial is calling it the Donroe Doctrine.
A grim play on words, isn't it? It refers to that shock event that started 2026, the abduction of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife.
By U.S. airborne troops?
By U.S. airborne troops. They were, literally snatched, flown to the U.S., and incarcerated.
It sounds like a spy thriller, but the editorial argues this isn't some random act. It's the formalization of a new foreign policy framework.
Right, this Donroe Doctrine. It fuses the old Monroe Doctrine from, 1823?
Yeah, the one that told Europe to stay out of the Americas.
That, fused with Donald Trump's aggressive, unilateral foreign policy. The U.S. has released a national security strategy, the NSS, that explicitly declares the U.S. the sole guarantor of security in the Western Hemisphere.
So they're saying the era of neglect is over. They're asserting total control.
Total preeminence. But what strikes me isn't just the act itself, it's the silence that followed.
The muted global reaction. That's the part that really got me. The editorial suggests this quiet implies the world has sort of tacitly accepted that the post-1945 order is dead.
It's gone.
There's no United Nations to appeal to anymore. It's just the free-for-all.
Exactly. And the fear is, if the U.S. can snatch a head of state, well, the precedent is set. China or Russia might look at this and say, okay, if the rules are gone,
we can make our own.
We can make our own. We can establish our own zones of influence without apology. And the NSS doesn't stop at Venezuela. It lists specific security interests in Cuba, Colombia, Mexico. And believe it or not, Greenland.
Greenland is back on the menu, a strategic play for the Arctic, I guess.
It has to be. But this shock and awe strategy, it's forcing everyone to pick a side. The document actually criticizes Europe for losing its sheen and suggests the U.S. should back patriotic parties there.
It's creating a wedge. And for our listeners in India, this puts New Delhi in an incredibly difficult position.
It really does. We've spent the last decade drifting closer to the U.S., but this editorial suggests the U.S. is now giving India the cold shoulder, an implicit coldness, as they put it.
Because of the Russian oil.
The U.S. is frustrated that India continues to import it. And at the same time, we're seeing the U.S. re-embrace Pakistan, supplying them with advanced weaponry again. They seem to prefer the predictability of Field Marshal Asim Munir's military control.
So India is looking at a 2026 where it might be isolated. The neutral middle ground is just vanishing.
You're either in the boat or you're in the water.
Wow. Okay, speaking of things that are vanishing, let's pivot to the second editorial, the copper crunch. This feels like the other shoe dropping on the whole EV revolution.
It's the collision of political ambition and geological reality. We spent years celebrating the software and the batteries of EVs, but we completely ignored the plumbing, the wiring.
And the numbers in this piece are they're stark. Between 2015 and 2025, EV sales went from 500,000 to 20 million, a huge success.
Huge. But copper consumption, for that surge to over 1.28 million tons. And here's the key stat.
An EV uses 4 to 5 times more copper than a gas car.
Exactly. You can't code your way around that. It's a physical requirement. And the editorial says we're hitting a supply wall this year in 2026.
And mining doesn't work on tech timelines, right? You can't just spin up a server. It takes 10 to 15 years to bring a new copper mine online.
Not to mention ore grades are declining everywhere.
Yeah.
We've already mined the easy stuff. So the editorial predicts a structural deficit emerging right now. By 2030, that gap hits 8 million tons.
8 million tons. What does that even mean in real terms?
It's the equivalent of the annual output of the world's 10 largest mines combined.
So we'd need to discover and build 10 new massive mines in the next 4 years just to break even.
which is
Yeah.
physically impossible. And there's this elasticity point, too. For every 1% rise in EV sales, copper demand rises 1%. It's a lockstep relationship.
That's if the copper isn't there.
The cars don't get built. End of story. And of course, there's a geopolitical winner here.
China.
It's China. They consume 60% of global EV-related copper and control 70% of battery cell production. They secured their supply chains years ago.
So while the US and EU are scrambling, China is set, and India is just fighting for scraps in a very expensive market.
That's the long and short of it.
The theme really is limits, isn't it? Limits on diplomacy, limits on copper. Okay, let's move to the science section, where we find an organism that has figured out how to overcome limits through sheer efficiency. We're going to Madagascar to look at the Darwin's bark spider.
Carostris darwini. Yes, this is a great palate cleanser from Geopolitics because it's all about biological economics. We've known for a while that this spider produces the toughest material on Earth.
Tougher than steel, tougher than Kevlar.
It has a tensile strength of 1.6 gigapascals, just an incredible number. But the new study reveals a nuance that I find fascinating. It turns out not every spider in the species can do this.
It's the big ladies doing the heavy lifting.
Pretty much. It's a case of extreme sexual dimorphism. The females are huge, 3 to 5 times larger than males, and the study found that only the large adult females produce this super silk.
The males and the juveniles are just making normal spider silk.
Standard run-of-the-mill web.
Yeah.
And the why is what's really interesting. It's not just that the females are bigger, it's that producing this material is expensive.
Diabolically expensive.
Exactly. To make this silk, the spider needs a lot of an amino acid called proline, and producing proline burns a massive amount of calories. In nature, you never spend energy you don't have to.
It's pure cost-benefit analysis. The females build these enormous webs.
Up to 25 meters wide.
Spanning across entire rivers to catch prey. They just need that strength to bridge the gap.
A bridge over a river needs to be stronger than a net in a bush. The males, they don't build these river-spanning traps, so they don't need the super material. The females effectively have a high-performance chemical factory inside them that they only switch on when they get big enough to need it.
It's like biological just-in-time manufacturing. They trade quantity for quality, the webs are sparse, fewer threads, but each thread is basically unbreakable.
It's a perfect evolutionary adaptation. You don't build a tank to go to the grocery store. You only build the armor when you're going to war.
Let's apply that logic of supply chains and armor to the tech world. The text and context section has a piece on something called Pax Silica. Sounds like a sci-fi novel.
It does, but it's a very dry, very serious summit that happened last month. Pax Silica Peace through Silicon. This is a U.S.-convened summit in December 2025.
And the goal is?
Straightforward. Secure the supply chain for semiconductors and AI to make sure the West stays ahead of China. It's a direct countermove.
Right, because the article notes China has been weaponizing its control over rare earth elements, blocking exports to the U.S. and even India.
So the U.S. formed a club, a very exclusive club. You have the U.S., Japan, South Korea for memory chips, the Netherlands, specifically for ASML's machines.
The lithography machines.
Right, and resource players like Australia. But the glaring omission at that first meeting was India.
India was not invited.
Not to the inaugural meet. The U.S. ambassador says an invite is coming, but this highlights a massive structural dilemma. India would be the only developing nation in the group.
And that matters because India's economic needs are completely different from, say, Japan's.
Completely. The founding members are established tech giants. They want open markets because they're already dominant. India has a young ecosystem. We want to use subsidies and tariffs to protect our own industry.
And that's the trap. If India joins Pax Silica, it might have to agree to rules that ban the very subsidies it needs to catch up.
But if it stays out, it loses access to the supply chain entirely. It really feels like the world is splitting into two loops, the China loop and the Pax Silica loop.
And India is trying to maintain strategic autonomy. But in a binary world, autonomy is a very lonely and potentially expensive place to be.
That's putting it mildly.
Staying on high-tech infrastructure, let's look at the other text and context piece on reusable rocketry. This feels like a shift we've all watched happen in slow motion, but the data here suggests it's now the dominant reality.
Oh, absolutely. The government-led era of space is officially dead. The space economy is projected to pass $1 trillion by 2030, and it's all being driven by the death of the disposable rocket.
The article frames this around the physics trap, the Tsiolkovsky rocket equation.
The tyranny of gravity. To get to space, you need fuel. But fuel is heavy, so you need more fuel just to lift the fuel you just added. It's a vicious cycle.
The math is brutal. 90% of a rocket is just gas and tank. Only about 4% is the actual payload. And we used to just crash that whole thing into the ocean.
It's economic insanity. It's like flying a 747 from New York to London and then sinking it in the Atlantic after every single flight. A ticket would cost millions.
And SpaceX changed the math.
They changed the entire equation by landing the booster. They've recovered Falcon 9 boosters over 520 times now. Some individual boosters have flown more than 30 times.
Which drops the cost by a factor of, what, 5 to 20?
In that range, yeah.
Yeah.
But the article points out a new bottleneck. It's not about landing anymore, it's about fatigue.
Metal gets tired.
Exactly. A rocket goes from the freezing cold of cryogenic fuel to the inferno of atmospheric reentry in just minutes. The limit now is inspection. How much does it cost to X-ray the rocket for microfractures versus just building a new one?
So it's become an airline maintenance problem, and the field is crowded now.
It's not just SpaceX anymore. You have Blue Origin's New Glenn, China's Land Space, and India's ISRO, developing the RLV, that winged shuttle and retro propulsion. We are building the railroads to orbit. The adventure phase is over.
The logistics phase has begun.
That's it.
For our final segment, let's come back down to Earth. We started with the US, but let's look at the other superpower. The business section analyzes China's record trade surplus, but the human cost behind it.
This is a really sobering read, because the headline numbers look fantastic for China. In 2025, they hit a record $1.2 trillion trade surplus. You look at that number and you think, China is winning.
But the article calls it a rat race triggered by Trump's tariffs. Those tariffs, over 100% in some cases, they basically killed the U.S. market for many Chinese exporters.
So they were forced to pivot to South America, Africa, Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And that pivot is just brutal for the workers. The article followed sales reps like Amy Chen and Chi-Chi Filby.
And they describe a complete collapse of work-life balance. The comparison between the old U.S. clients and the new ones was really striking.
It was. They describe U.S. clients as easygoing, signing fast, buying in bulk. These new clients in developing markets, they have less capital, they haggle aggressively over pennies, they buy smaller volumes.
And the risk of them defaulting on payment is much, much higher.
There was that one anecdote that it floored me. Chi-Chi Filby, the battery seller, she spent months cultivating a client, talking about religion, lunch, building a whole relationship.
Just to sell one battery.
For a $2 commission.
$2. That's the reality behind this $1.2 trillion surplus. It's built on millions of workers working 3 times as hard for half the money.
There's a phrase circulating on RedNote, their social media platform, that just sums it all up. If we're alive, we have to reply.
It's a haunting motto. It implies that the only excuse for missing a message is literally death.
It really challenges the narrative that, national economic strength equals individual well-being. The country's getting rich, but the people driving it are just burning out. It's profit without prosperity.
That's a powerful place to end. We've gone from the macro-level brutality of the Donroe Doctrine to the micro-level efficiency of spider silk, and finally to the human toll of global trade.
And if there's one single takeaway from all of this, it's that we're entering a harder era. The easy copper is gone, the easy diplomatic relations are gone, the easy trade routes are gone.
So adaptation is the only way to survive.
The only game in town.
A cheery thought for a Wednesday?
Reality rarely is.
Sure enough. Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we're eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.